Howdy, Chunky. This is the voice of reason for a Sunday morning. It is the 6th of July, which means tonight we are back, and I can't wait. It's the moment they all dreaded, and the day that so many agencies spent an awful lot of time, money, and effort trying to avoid. They thought that 5 arrests would put me off. They thought that 3 illegal raids without a warrant to ransack my home and smash down my front door might put me off, and they thought 2.9 years in jail would kill me. But it did not.
I had, if you look at my criminal record that people go on about, I had one conviction up until the formation of the English Defence League. I started the English Defence League in 2009, and then I've just been inundated with arrest after arrest after arrest after arrest after arrest. I think Alex Belfield, I think he's now experiencing the same. He's had 5 raids, isn't he? He's a journalist who speaks out against BNP. No one can say that he's a violent man, right? But he has had the same tactics thrown against him. So I don't claim to be perfect.
I am here, I am alive, and I have never been more spirited and more empowered to want to come back bigger, louder and better and more unfiltered than ever. But be under no doubt, there is a price to pay, a big one, for free speech.
Oh, shushy, shushy, please be quiet. This tippy-tappy gobshidery ain't for you. Alex Belfield's voice of reason.
And if you do say you've given evidence, do you understand?
I do much. Here we go then for a Sunday morning. A little bit of business to get out of the way. Firstly, all of the books are now in the post and on the way to those who have bought them. This was Tarquin's job on Friday. His piles were enormous. He is driven by them. And I want to thank everybody who supported us. This is my life story, which explains 40 years of how I went through the cesspit and the sewer of show business to get to you today. I've had every shitty job in the world, from working in South Wales to Nairobi. I worked for BS for the Armed Forces Radio in Germany, and none of it went particularly well. You'll read all about the horrible people that will literally stab their own mother in the front to get airtime, and indeed would be willing to do anything to get rid of you to make them better. The book is available now. It's called His Own Worst Enemy, and thank you to you if you've indulged me so far. Tonight at 9 o'clock, the phone-in returns at alexbelfield.com, and tomorrow the 30-minute news at 6 a.m. will be back. This is what I do, and this is what I've always done. My life has never been different, and this is all I know. I want to talk to you very briefly this morning about a man called Tommy Robinson, who I know a little bit. We're not picking out curtains or swapping kidneys, but I have a lot of time for this man because it seems to me in principle he doesn't like the notion of underage girls being groomed and being raped by a certain minority of people in this country who up until last week we weren't allowed to say were in fact mostly Pakistani Muslim men. The awkward elephant in the room has led Tommy down some very difficult paths, and indeed into the nick, the huskar, the prison, the jail, like it did me. Words come at a very high price. Tommy and I are very difficult people to understand because for many people they say, why don't you just give up? Why don't you shut up and go away and make your life and the life of your family much easier? When you go to prison, there's a high price to pay and the family pay the most. And Tommy, like me, has a lot of guilt about that, but we feel that we are on a mission. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Tommy because he's much bigger, more famous, more celebrated, and more hated than I am. That's why, for example, when I was in a CCAT prison, I was able to walk around like King Tut with a folder under my arm like Celia Imrie running the place, and he had to be in isolation for fear of his life. He has gone to great lengths to point out what he believes is the truth and what I believe is born out of his research and, unfortunately, history. The truth hurts, and when you start poking and prodding into things that are awkward, like child abuse, unfortunately, you get great enemies. My woes started with the police when I outed a theatre guy in Yorkshire who had sexually abused 9 girls, of which I had the name and addresses of all of them with permission of their parents. And I went to South Yorkshire Police and asked them to investigate, and they did. They didn't take his laptop and they didn't take his phone. In fact, just like Hugh Edwards, the phone was never looked at because in Hugh's case it was lost. Nobody smashed down his front door to take it at 8:30 in the morning like they did for me 3 times. There is a double standard that is so glaring about which side of the fence you're on. And when you choose to be on a certain path, you have to take it on the chin. And I told myself back in 1996, when I started in radio and live entertainment, back then I was working for little old ladies in care homes, entertaining them with my organ, and then went on to work around the world as a broadcaster for 80 radio stations and interviewing some of the biggest stars and becoming the #1 theatre critic. They don't like me there because they're one of the creepiest little departments of show business, where the casting couch does exist, and the shenanigans that goes on, especially amongst the gay men, is quite appalling. And I have made many enemies. In fact, I'm my own worst enemy because of the fact that they know I am fearless in fighting for the truth, as is Tommy. Tommy and I may look very different, and you may think we've come from a different background, but actually I came from a pit estate, I came from a working class family, and I didn't go to university, and I never fitted in at the BBC. I spent 15 years there doing my journalism and learning the tricks of the trade and seeing where the bodies were buried. That's why there was a witch hunt to close me down. That's why the BBC handed a file to Nottingham Police, who, by the way, at the same time that they were harassing, hounding and pushing me to the point of suicide as they hoped, they were ignoring a man that went on to murder 3 people in Nottingham. And indeed, despite being mentally bonkers and under a warrant, they ignored him willingly and allowed him to go on to destroy 3 families' lives and others. So this path is interesting, and there is a live court case at the minute, so I can't talk about it, but I am gravely concerned for Tommy about this court case because it does not seem that dissimilar to mine. I was convicted, despite what you might hear from certain mental people, that words were my conviction. That's what it was. It wasn't a physical crime. I was convicted of stalking with alarm and distress, and 2 counts of simple stalking, which turned out to be stalking without fear of alarm and distress. So if you're not feeling alarm and distress now, I'm probably stalking you. The reality is, unfortunately, the new charge that they've got Tommy on, which he's pled not guilty to, is harassment with fear of violence. And that's even higher up than what I went down for. And as you know, they added all mine together, which never happens in a court unless there's conspiracy. But in my case, they didn't care because they had to get it over the 4-year mark so that I wouldn't get tagged, so that I would be forgotten and I wouldn't be speaking to you today. And hopefully by the 2.9 years I served behind the door, of which after 1 year I should have been home in open prison, or I should have got the 40%, but I didn't, or I should have got a tag, which I didn't. Because I was too high a risk. In fact, before I left the prison, they manually put me to very high risk, terrorism level, MAPA 2 level 3 monitoring, which is what Tommy is facing at the moment. And it's a horrible thing to know that you're looking over your shoulder. Russell Brand knows how it feels. I'm sure the Tate brothers, who I'm less of a fan of because I've seen clips of them that make me quite nervous. It's hard to sympathise with the Tates, as they're so obnoxious. But am I offended? No, I just don't watch them because I'm not an 18-year-old lad with a 6-pack who wants a 25-inch penis and wants to sleep with hookers. But we've all got our own demographic, and I understand what they're doing, and it's big business, and I get it, but I think they're going to pay a big price for it. So as for Tommy, I struggle to say anything negative about him because I know his heart. And the conversations we've had, and we spoke quite a bit before I went into prison, he has some of the most beautiful compassion and empathy that I've ever encountered. He understands why people like me put ourselves in danger and why we're willing to fall on our sword, literally, and go to prison over what we believe to be true. And how words can be twisted is very, very dangerous in this culture. It ends careers far less seriously than mine, but look at who we've lost since I've been in prison. From the Gino De Campos, who was encouraged by Phil and Holly to be obscene on This Morning, he's now gone. The man who's light on his feet on that Strictly programme, gone. Gino, gone. They're all gone. There's the Greg Wallaces. He's gone for words. This is a game, and what you have to understand, and what I'm begging you to consider this morning, and I will be talking about this far more freely, and I'll elucidate far more on the phone in tonight at 9 o'clock live at alexbelfield.com, is that this is a game of the far left radicals to wipe out people like me and Tommy because they don't want our narrative. And our narrative begins at the point of the protection of children. And for me, particularly the defense of Silvertops, our older legends who are being ignored and abused by people like Keir Starmer and his government by taking away things like the winter fuel payment, and they don't give two fucks. And if people like us didn't kick off so loudly, and people like you watching this didn't support people like me kicking off so loudly that end up in prison, the whole thing would collapse and they'd get away with it all. I just want you to know this week, I've had an email from a man who appeared in my court case asking me for an interview. A man who lied under oath, and the judge had to tell the jury to forget what you've just heard after they edited a tape that was a lie. I had 12 different shirts on from 12 different programs that they edited together to say, I hope you die of COVID. That was never mentioned in any of the interviews. And now they have the audacity to phone me for an interview. And then we have another victim who has twice signed up, paid to go on my website twice. None of this makes sense. It's a game to wipe out people like Tommy and I. And Katie Hopkins is another one who has been the dearest of all friends and the most loyal, even though she has a horse face and a lady part like a dropped lasagna, which isn't her fault. It's gynecological, and it's an issue that even I wouldn't dream of going into and poking fun at Pandora's box, because fingering something like that would not be appropriate on YouTube. It would get me banned. But Katie was got to her knees by Lawfare. So if they can't imprison you, they then bankrupt you. And that's what they did to her. They're trying to do the same to my dear friend Andrew Bridgen right now. He's got all kinds of shit going on in the civil courts. And I will talk about tonight my interaction with the civil courts, because the lawfare that goes on is unbelievable. We live in a country where somebody is willing to lose £250,000 in legal costs to get a fake apology and £10,000. This is extraordinary. And I've had several of them. And they keep coming. They keep suing me to lose this house. The whole game now is he isn't dead. He didn't kill himself. He wasn't stabbed. He went to London on Friday and wasn't even stabbed, which is a fucking miracle. And he's still alive, so now we're going to take the house. And they will keep coming. I'm sure sooner or later there'll be a writ over this. But I can tell you now, I have never told a lie, and I stand by my truth. As does Tommy, and will never give in, because I'm my own worst enemy. I have been since I was born, and I blame my mother and father, and I blame my wonderful nana who I talk about in this book, who taught me that right is right and wrong is wrong, and that if you believe something, you have to passionately defend it. But in doing so, the system now is so corrupt, crooked and screwed that they will conflate and twist anything to gag and silence you. They try bankrupting you, bullying you, intimidating you, throwing you in prison. Then they take it all away and they hope that you will eventually give up. And I know Tommy doesn't have that in him. And for that, I have to admire him. But I want you to know about the impact on family. And I want you to know that for all the jokes I do here, because my job is to make Britain laugh again, MBLA, that's my job, is as a comedian, which I've done since I was a child, as you'll read in here. All I ever want to do is make people laugh, but there comes a price when you miss 3 Christmases with your aging father who's about to turn 81, for example. Or for Tommy, the embarrassment of being kicked out of restaurants because he's Tommy Robinson in front of his children. There's big prices to pay. And my prison bag is still packed. I'm waiting for the door to go. Because they can't stand this. Because why I have a voice, I've won, and they know that. That's how all this started. Let's close him down was the email sent anonymously that began all of this. All I wanted to know was who sent it so I could sue them. I didn't have the money for what's a High Court order for £25,000 to force the name of the person. I didn't have the money. But none of this was reported. No. As soon as the press saw my lot stand up in court, they fucked off. And mostly sat in Nottingham Police's office. I was an operation, by the way. You'll read about it in book 2, Locked Down, Locked Up. My operation was called Operation Orchard. Thank God it wasn't Utree. So I just want you to know the price that we pay to be the voice of reason or Tommy Robinson. This isn't a joke and a game. And for those who always throw, he's a grifter or he's profiting, which they do to both Tommy and everyone, Anna Breeze, they did it to her. It's a cheap shot by people who have nothing left. At the point when you've been raided 3 times, which I have illegally without warrants by Nottingham police who took their lapel numbers off, and they didn't find a single image anywhere and therefore couldn't say I was a pedo, which is what they wanted, or there's been no accusation of any sexual impropriety because I have a micro penis and nobody wants to go anywhere near it. All they have left is to bullshit the law and come up with new laws like online stalking. And as many people as I walk around Nottingham keep asking me, how can you stalk people you've never met and had previously never even heard of? And I repeat, I got 2.5 years for a man who sent an email to close me down. I have 2.5 years from a man who published it and wouldn't reveal who it was, who I've never heard of or met. And 2 times 13 weeks for 2 people, one of which who published the repeat of the tweet, which, by the way, he denied in court and said he hadn't read it. And then his witness came up with this cockamamie video about I hope you die of COVID, which the judge ordered the jury to forget, as if that's a thing. Forget what you've just heard. It's all on court record. I'm not making this up, and I'll tell you why I'm not making it up. I can't make it up. If I even went anywhere near twisting anything from that court case, it would be under sub judice, it would be contempt of court, and it would be another 5 years. I'm the first and only man in history who asked the judge, am I a journalist? To which he replied yes, and asked, can I therefore report on my own trial? And he said yes. And I did, for 5 long, torturous weeks, so that you could see both sides of the story and make up your own mind, which the press wouldn't cover because they fucked off the second we spoke. And my KC, my Silk, stood up, they walked out. Never believe a trial again, which is why this week I made the video about Lucy Letby. And that's why I made the video the week before about Lucy Connolly. You can't believe a word the press tell you, and you can't believe the conviction in a court, because people will lie under oath. That's why this week we've seen arrests over previous cases where previously no one else was involved. Through history, people will lie. They will do whatever they can to wipe out who they perceive to be their enemy. And my belief is that Tommy Robinson is such a thorn in the side of the state, they are not going to stop until he's gone. And that's why my bag is still packed, because the only way they win is if I stop gobshiting. So I applaud Tommy. I thank Tommy for what he is doing to bring light to the shade that is shameful in this country. And as I told you yesterday as I was mincing through the park, I didn't get 40%. I didn't get early release. I didn't get tag. They made me do every day, yet these people get out early. And as nobody can fathom, even though it's 100% true, in the official Oasis document, which is your risk to the public, I am 0.17%. Yet I am now, this second, MAPA 2 Level 3 terrorism monitored. They know exactly what I'm doing every second of the day. And these scum-sucking pond life refused my request to attend a memorial on the anniversary of the 3 dead people in Nottingham killed by Callacane. I'm not allowed to attend gatherings that they don't want me to attend. You think that's fair? And you know why? They told me, because the press will be there. What has that got to do with me paying my respects to 3 fallen Nottingham angels? And people keep asking, will you be at the Freedom Day? Of course I'd love to be at the Freedom Day rally by Tommy in September. They are never going to allow it, because for the 2.9 years I'm on license, they have the right to refuse anything. But all I'll do is tell you, because the one thing they can't stop, even though they tried. Before I left prison, they said, you will never speak again. You will never bring out these books. You won't go on tour until the end of your license. Piff, paff, poof, a legal letter later reminding them of Article 10 free speech. And it's all dropped. You can say what the fuck you like, with one prerequisite, which I will tell you tonight at 9 o'clock at alexbelfield.com at the beginning of the phone-in. So there you go. I just wanted to have my say about Tommy, because, you know, it's it's so concerning that a man who may well have made mistakes in the past, and by the way, with free speech, do you really think that when you're speaking as often as I am, for example, this week, we've got the 30-minute news 6 times. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that's nearly 3 hours of material. And then I'm on air 3 hours. So that's 6 hours plus extra videos. Let's call it 7 hours a week. Are you not going to misspeak at least once in 7 hours a week? And do I not have the right to make a mistake? No, I don't. There are teams of people watching this now. This is why I'm being so careful, waiting to slip up so they can throw me back in prison, just like Tommy. And I know if I were killed tomorrow in some unfortunate car accident in a tunnel, there would be parties up and down show business, because they know I know where the bodies are buried. And there is more nonsense going on in this business than you can shake a stick at. That's why I told you the BBC was a nonce factory, knowing what I knew about Hugh Edwards. They all know. They know what's going on, as they did about Philip Schofield with the young man. They knew. And I don't believe any co-host who says they didn't know. I believe them to be a liar. Ask Eamon Holmes, who's also ostracized for speaking out. And the Glastonbury thing, I said in a video this week, should he go to prison? No! The atrocity in Gaza is far worse than any words anybody could ever use. But the double standard cannot be that you can only send Tommy and Alex to prison, but you can't send somebody on a lefty stage at Glastonbury where they shit in a bucket and all get off their tits on ket. I heard today, by the way, the average age of people at Glastonbury is over 40. This isn't a youth event. These are people in a midlife crisis that want to stick a Violeta mop up their bottom because it gives them a little tickle that they haven't had since the late 80s. These people were born when the Barham Knights were in the charts, and yet they're listening to little Bobby Villain ranting and raving and effing and blinding. Listen, this is what I do on the phone in and the news every day. I just had to get it out before we move to my new chapter. I will not be talking about my situation much longer. I have addressed it. I think I've answered every question everybody's asked. The phone in tonight will be your opportunity to ask me any question you want about anything other than one caveat for my own protection. And I will explain that at 9 o'clock. Other than that, you can ask me anything. And there's no producer. There's nobody answering the phones and deciding like it's LBC or Talk Radio or any of these daytime shitty shows where they will decide who gets on and who doesn't. That's why they're all left-leaning. That's why the radicals who present them are having such a lovely time. If the real public got through to these people, it would not go so well. Trust me. And can I just very finally make it clear why I went to prison? That has only just come out afterwards, especially with the 2 stalking, simple stalking, which is stalking without fear, alarm and distress. It appears I was convicted of a bullshit new crime, which is an insult to real stalking victims, by the way, bearing in mind I've never been anywhere near them, so they made this thing up. But nevertheless, I'll take it on the chin. I'm not looking for sympathy. This isn't a boo-hoo Rachel Reeves moment. No. But I went to prison for something that didn't happen by someone that didn't exist. And that person is you. They've all said since that they were scared of not what I would do because they knew I was no risk. This is what I'm told by my probation officers, but by what you might do on my behalf that didn't happen. So you're looking at a man who went to prison for something that didn't happen by a person who didn't exist. It's just words of conflation of people who invented things in their imagination that might have happened. Now listen here, I might have an 18-inch cock. It's not true, but I can say it is, and for that reason I must believe it. That's where we're at in law, and that's what worries me about Tommy. These people do such a convincing acting job that people fall for this nonsense. And where is all the talk about P. Diddy this week? And why did the BBC say that his people, his legal team, will be relieved by the verdict? I thought he was found guilty of quite a lot. And regardless of whether he was or wasn't found guilty, the fact that you're paying for male rent boys to stop your female people who are around you, I think is really concerning. Because as a man who's not had a portion since ABBA were in the charts with Waterloo, I find it really strange, because never in my wildest fantasies, sexual or otherwise, have I thought to myself, I'm going to pay a rent boy to fuck the current Mrs. Belfield. But it's not about that now, is it? It's about who was in the room with them. That's why this all happened. It's not about Puff Diddy Daddy Puff the Magic Dragon. It's about who was there. It's so sickening what show business is. And I've managed to navigate it without having any involvement in any of this. But isn't it funny? The first involvement with the police is over child sexual assault. And I was told I would be arrested if I named the guy who's now working for Haven. And if I were to tell you who it was now, I'd be arrested and sent back to prison for another 3 years. Wow. So Tommy, I love you, mate. I admire you. And more than any other compliment, I respect you, because you are unwavering in what you believe is right. And as far as I can see, you ain't getting it that wrong so far. But there's a big price to pay. Prison, it's a piece of piss for people like me, prison. But the emotional that is taken on your family, the worry they have for you. Lest we forget, a man was murdered yards from me in the very prison I was at. Murdered last September. Google it, at Fossway. Murdered. And 15 people died whilst I was there. There are people dying every single day in prisons in this country, and nobody reports it. It's just another druggie. Nah, it's just another stabbing. Nah, it's just another overdose. That's what they wanted. Not many laughs in this, I'm sorry about that, but you know, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Tommy, mate, I've got your back. It won't help you, but all I can tell you is with Lucy Connolly, send her a letter. I can't for 3 months, or I'll be recalled. You're not allowed to contact other prisoners, but you can. Please send Lucy a note to send your solidarity and love. She shouldn't be there for words. No matter how abhorrent words are, switch off. Don't pay to sign up. Switch off. Go somewhere else. If you don't like me or Tommy or Katie or anyone else, go and fuck right off. You don't have to be here. You're torturing yourself because you're in love with us. And the fact that the very people who are projecting the obsession from you on them is in fact them on you. In my case, I hadn't even heard of 2 of the people. I went to prison for stalking 2 people I hadn't even heard of. They didn't say that in the Daily Mail. I've said enough. Have a wonderful Sunday. Tonight from 9, I will be back doing the phone in, and I can't wait. That was way longer than it should have been, but it needed to be said, and it will never be said again. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. We have 500 more copies of my book, which are going out this week. If you want one, get in quick. There's a bit of merch available. We've got a load of new stuff coming, and the phone-in starts tonight at 9 o'clock, where you can talk about Windy Pops, anything you want, other than one thing, and I will tell you at the beginning, and if you do, you'll be cut off immediately. It doesn't bother me. It won't affect me. I can't be recalled for what you say. I can only be recalled for what I say. So I'm fully aware of my restrictions. I was on bail for 2 years and didn't put a foot wrong once. I make a lot of jokes. There's no such thing as free speech. There isn't. But as Tommy is proving right now, and I am proving right now, it does have an impact. Because if the dark forces had their way, as was proved when I was put to very high risk MAPA level 2 terrorism watch 2 weeks before I left the Huskar, if they had their way, I wouldn't be here now. I would be silent until 2028. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I love you, Tom. Keep going, my mate. Be you. Be true to yourself, but protect yourself, because we are not safe. And yes, right now I am being entrapped. We know I am. That's why people are asking for interviews, and other people are signing up and paying to do so. Leave me alone. to all the trolls. Every time you put my video up, you remind people I exist, and you make me wealthier in heart and spirit and pocket, because you make the interest even greater. You cannot convince people not to like someone. Equally, you can't convince people to not like someone. All you do is remind them and keep them up here. So please keep spreading your filth and keep my name bubbling on the cooker. Because whilst it's simmering away, the word is getting out that the establishment is evil. The BBC needs to be defunded immediately. They are as crooked as they could come. And I stand by what I said. I was there for 15 years. And I've never met so many perverts, so many unhinged people, and people who should be getting 2.9 years in jail, including Hugh Edwards. But he isn't. Nobody's monitoring him. He's not Mapper 2 Level 3 Terrorism Watch like I am and Tommy is. Trust me, if I am, Tommy is. Everywhere we go, they know, and they want to know. And I worry about his gathering. I'll tell you, I'll slap it on the table right now. I worry because they won't want him doing that, and they certainly aren't going to let me go. I'll ask, and I'll tell you when they say no. And then you can decide whether you think that's right and fair and just, or whether we're just living in North Korea. This Chinese dictatorship that paints itself as the labour-loving, heart-filled, joyous place. What absolute horsecock. Right, I've done way too much. This will be on Monday morning, the news, where I talk about 30 different stories and go through the lot. Monday morning, 6 a.m, 30 minutes of news that we can't do here. To let you know about YouTube, look, we're here and we'll be not here soon. I'm sure they'll get rid of me. We know the mainstream media are doing everything they can. The newspapers are writing to them, begging them to get me off, take me off, pull me off, whatever they want to do. Fuck them. It doesn't matter. AlexBelfield.com's there. And if I die tomorrow, I've got this video. Please copy it. Please share it. Because it's that serious for Tommy and I. And Katie's looking over her shoulder too. Don't you worry about that. We had a beautiful conversation on Friday. This woman is selling out thousands and thousands of seats in any town in this country because people love her. Why? Why? Because she's funny. And she's right. Most of the time. Not all of the time. She's mostly right. And I'm honoured that I gave her platform back. She hadn't worked here in 5 years, and I gave her that stage, and she deserved it, and she owned it. And just last night, there she was, filling it packed full at the North Pier. The same theatre where I was a week before I ended up in a double pad in HMP Lincoln, the rat-infested shithole. It's not worse than Broadcasting House, but it's still a shithole. And there I was. And to think, whilst I was in prison, the BBC paid £500,000 to rebuild the pedo statue by Eric Gill, the little boy with his cock out, having raped his 2 daughters and the family dog. That's your BBC, not me. Then you can clip that, trolls, clip that and put it out there. This isn't my opinion, these are facts. Can you imagine this is our country where our national broadcaster has an emblem of a pedo statue on the front, having had Hugh Edwards and Savile? You'd think they'd want to be as far away from the nonsense as possible. My God. Makes HMP 5 Wells and Fossway look like Disneyland. I must go. This is, if you like this sort of thing, this is what I do on the phone-in and on the news at alexbelfield.com. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Tommy, keep going, my friend. Keep on keeping on. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you at 9 o'clock tonight, live for the phone-in. Ta-da.
Odds takers, dingy divers, and lefties. This ain't for you. Alex Belfield's voice of reason.